Los Angeles mayor says city will move homeless. NASA Mars rover to cache first rock samples for delivery to Earth. FIFA chief dubs Qatar 2022 as best World Cup ever. Award-winning author's work celebrates black Muslim children. Illegal Israeli settlers storm Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa mosque complex. Jordan bans TikTok amid protests over fuel prices. From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass said the city will move homeless people into hotels and motels while it builds more affordable housing. The Inside Safe initiative was launched Tuesday, 8 days after Bass was sworn in as mayor. She declared homelessness a state of emergency. Homelessness in the Los Angeles area has risen since the pandemic. The county's 2022 report shows the homeless count at close to 42,000 people in Los Angeles City, up 1.7% from 2020. Los Angeles' total population is about 3.8 million. Bass said 95% of the people can be housed through community outreach. She said the initiative would not involve clearing out homeless encampments. She added in 4 years there should be little to no encampments left. NASA will be storing some luggage for a trip home from Mars. The Perseverance rover will leave 10 test tube-sized cores of Martian rock and other materials at a safe drop spot. They could be deposited as early as next week onto the ground of Jezero crater. Perseverance has been collecting the cores since it landed in Jezero in February 2021. It drills and stores rock samples in its belly as it rolls around on Mars and has accumulated a range of scientific samples. NASA and the European Space Agency plan to send another spacecraft to fetch the samples. They will be returned to Earth in about a decade. It will be the first Mars sample return. Minaka Shiwadwa, NASA's principal planetary scientist for the Mars sample return, called it a big and exciting milestone. Gianni Infantino, president of FIFA, said this year's World Cup in Qatar has been the best ever. Infantino attributed it to the unique cohesive power that this World Cup has shown. His comments came after a council meeting of football's global governing body Friday in Qatar's capital, Doha. Infantino hailed the transformative legacy of this World Cup. He said people from around the world have come to Qatar and have discovered the Arab world. It has shattered people's preconceptions as they knew only what was portrayed to them, he said. There were many historic firsts, including a wide spread of countries making it to the tournament's knockout phase. This World Cup also saw its first female referee and Morocco become the first Arab and African team to reach a World Cup semifinal. Jamila Tompkins Bigelow, a children's author and former educator, has published 4 books featuring Black Muslim children. Tompkins Bigelow of Philadelphia said she wanted to see herself and children represented in literature. She taught English for 15 years before discovering her passion for writing. Tompkins Bigelow's work is critically acclaimed by many trusted literary voices. Among them are the American Library Association, School Library Journal, and NPR. She has also won several awards and has been recognized by Time magazine. Her 5th book, Salat in Secret, will be released next June. Scores of Israeli settlers on Monday forced their way into the Al-Aqsa mosque compound in occupied East Jerusalem. They were marking the start of the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, according to a Palestinian official. The 8-day Jewish Festival of Lights began at sundown on Sunday. An official with the Jerusalem Endowment Department said 192 settlers entered the mosque in groups through the Al-Mugharaba gate. Israeli police have imposed restrictions on the entry of Palestinian worshippers into the site during settlers' tours, the official said. Israeli extremist groups have called on settlers to converge on the Al-Aqsa complex to celebrate Hanukkah. Al-Aqsa is the world's 3rd holiest site for Muslims. Jews refer to the area as the Temple Mount, claiming it was the site of 2 Jewish temples in ancient times. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte on Monday officially apologized for 250 years of the Netherlands' involvement in slavery. Ruta called it a crime against humanity. The apology comes nearly 150 years after the end of slavery in the European countries' overseas colonies. The Dutch funded their golden age of empire in the 16th and 17th centuries by shipping around 600,000 Africans as part of the slave trade. The enslaved people were sent mostly to South America and the Caribbean. Former Dutch colonies include Suriname, Curaçao, and Aruba Islands in the Caribbean, and Indonesia in the Far East. Aruba's Prime Minister Evelyn Weaver-Crose accepted the apology, but some other colonies, such as the island of Sint Maarten, did not. Ruta made the apology in English, Papiamento, and Sranan-Tongo, languages spoken on the Caribbean islands and in Suriname. Jordan has imposed a temporary ban on TikTok amid violent protests over fuel price hikes. A Jordanian police officer was shot dead Thursday during protests in the southern town of Al-Husseiniya. The Public Security Directorate suspended the social media platform for glorifying hate speech and inciting chaos. The agency accuses the widely used platform of inciting attacks on law enforcement agencies, property, and blocking roads. It said TikTok was misused by users to promote videos falsifying current events. Tension has been running high in Jordan amid a strike staged by truck drivers since December 5th. The drivers are protesting soaring fuel prices and living conditions. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been called the butcher of Gujarat, yet he has been twice elected as head of the country. Let's find out how and why.
The world today sees them as the epicenter of terrorism. Now, I know we've been through 2.5 years of COVID, and a lot of us have brain fog as a result. But I assure you, the world has not forgotten.
They continuously perpetuate this philosophy. And it's not just for Pakistan, it's for the Muslims in India. We're terrorists whether we're Muslims in Pakistan, and we're terrorists whether we're Muslims in India. I'd like to remind the Honourable Foreign Minister, or the Minister for External Affairs of India, that Osama bin Laden is dead, but the butcher of Gujarat lives. And he is the Prime Minister of India. He was banned from entering this country until he became Prime Minister. This is the Prime Minister of the RSS and the Foreign Minister of the RSS.
90% of Syrian refugees in Lebanon are in need of humanitarian aid. Details after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today.
I am what hunger looks like in America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. A group of United Nations agencies on Friday said 90% of Syrian refugees in Lebanon are in need of humanitarian aid. Most of them suffer from tough living conditions made worse by the Lebanese and global economic crises. Lebanon is home to roughly 1.5 million Syrian refugees. Abdullah Al-Wardat, World Food Program representative and country director in Lebanon, said food security for refugees is a major concern. The agency is supporting 1 in every 3 people in the country with cash assistance, food parcels, and school snacks. Ayaki Ito, the UN Refugee Agency representative in Lebanon, said since 2020 the price of essential items and services has increased by 700%. Syrian refugee children and adolescents are affected the most. Roughly 60% of Syrian refugee children between the ages of 6 and 14 were attending school regularly in 2022. The attendance rate drops to 8% for older adolescents at upper secondary school level. 6 out of 10 Syrian refugee boys and girls experienced violent disciplinary methods. A Danish television station apologized on Twitter for airing derogatory comments about Morocco's national football team. The comments compared Moroccan players and their families to monkeys. TV2 News host Christian Hugh Anderson presented images of Moroccan players hugging their mothers and celebrating after winning World Cup matches. He followed that with a segment about animals and how they gather together to keep warm, holding up a picture of monkeys. The station expressed deep regret over the obvious comparison. TV2 issued a statement on its official website saying Anderson drew a link between staying together as a family to the next topic about animals. The station acknowledged that this can be perceived as a racist comment. TV2 News editor-in-chief Anne Metsavane admitted the comments were wrong and offensive. The FIFA World Cup has been marred by widespread anti-Arab and anti-Muslim comments in the European media. Starting in 2023, UNICEF plans to extend a pilot program to educate older Rohingya children at refugee camps in Bangladesh. The UN agency has been supervising classroom instruction under a Burmese national curriculum for nearly 200,000 children. Those students are mostly in 1st through 4th grades at learning centers scattered in refugee camps. Now, UNICEF plans to cover all 410,000 school-age refugee children who make up about half of the roughly 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. Nearly 3/4 of the population crossed into Bangladesh after the Burmese military's genocide in Rakhine State in August 2017. In late November, a group of U.S. senators led by Edward Markey of Massachusetts called on the Biden administration to back Rohingya educational efforts. India has accused China of entering its territory. The U.S. State Department has encouraged India and China to use existing channels to discuss disputed boundaries. The Daily Telegraph reports border clashes between India and China are regularly covered up. It said India is covering up the true extent of its clashes with China to avoid public panic, according to senior Indian Army sources. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need
at aarp.org/caregiving.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. It's time for our in-depth analysis segment. Let's watch.
Two nuclear powers, Pakistan and India, have begun a war of words. It all started when the Indian External Affairs Minister, Jaishankar, accused Pakistan of terrorism. Now, they have been doing that for a while. What is new is that the Pakistan's foreign minister, Bilawal Zardari Bhutto, he responded very strongly. He said, Osama bin Laden is dead. Now, Osama bin Laden is accused of being responsible for 9/11, which killed almost 3,000 people. But he says, Butcher of Gujarat is alive. He's referring to the Prime Minister of India, and he said that, and he is the Prime Minister of India. He was referring to Gujarat pogrom of Muslims, where almost 3,000 people died 20 years ago. There is protest in India in front of Pakistani embassies. There are a lot of things being said. And a leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is the political party, it has announced a $250,000 award for anybody who can kill Pakistani foreign minister. To discuss with us is Waqar Rizwi. Welcome to Muslim Network TV and Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you very much for having me.
Waqar Rizwi is a journalist and a TV show host at British Muslim TV. So could you please share with us what gave rise to these war of words between countries who have actually fought wars in the past?
Well, I mean, it's obviously nothing new, right? But I think that Jaishankar possibly overstepped this time around, right? Because he went into this quite aggressively, though he was smart in the sense that he didn't name Pakistan directly, at least the first time around. But to then accuse the country twice and not expect a response, because as we know, and as you outlined in the introduction as well, ever since Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto did respond and talk about Prime Minister Modi, as well as his actions in Gujarat, there has been an Indian reaction to saying that Bilawal Bhutto should not have responded that way. But what exactly were they expecting to happen? Obviously, if you're going to reach out, if you're going to blame a country for terrorism, that country has the right to respond, certainly.
Now, he also says he brought in Muslims, Zardari Bhutto, in his response, saying that whether Muslims, wherever Muslims are, whether Muslims in India or Muslims in Pakistan, they're accused of terrorism. There is nothing new about it. Do you think this thing it will continue to survive, this particular association that whoever is Muslim is looked for that he's a terrorist?
I think that if we just look at, and I don't want to go into another topic, but if we look at how the international media and even some politicians around the world spoke about what happened in Qatar with the World Cup, and that was a Muslim country for the first time hosting the World Cup, and we can of course criticize Qatar or whatever for things that are legitimately things that should be criticized, but nevertheless, just we get the feeling that overall in international fora there is more of an anti-Muslim feeling, and that cannot be denied. And I think that, yes, certainly, Foreign Minister Bilal Bhutto was right in that regard. Even the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, did a lot of work when it came to the issue of Islamophobia. And certainly, yes, this immediate trope, and it is a trope if we're completely honest, if you're just going to say Muslims everywhere are terrorists, or at least give that impression, then that is a trope, and you are engaging that in quite blatant Islamophobia.
Now, the Pakistani foreign ministers invoke Gujarat program. Now, for most of the world, they have no idea what it was. Would you like to elaborate a little bit? What was he referring to? Because 9/11, Usama bin everybody knows. Not many people know what happened in Gujarat in 2002.
Indeed, Gujarat riots, as we well know, were, of course, when Prime Minister Modi at that time, Narendra Modi, who was the chief minister of Gujarat at that time, allowed for a program to take place against the Muslims in that state. And of course, this, you have to remember, is in a long line of such actions. So I just did a show recently on the Babri Mosque and the 30th anniversary of the demolition of the Babri Mosque as well. And many people would see the Babri Mosque demolition as almost a timeline beginning to how then the slide down began for Muslims in that country. Now, certainly, of course, the RSS, BJP, Hindutva, all of the above would deny that Muslims are treated any differently. But the very fact that after the Babri Mosque demolition in 1992, then in 2001/2002, we have this program in Gujarat, it's not a coincidence. This was leading to that. And now we are where we are in 2022, and now unfortunately, in 2023, we probably will expect a lot more, unfortunately, Islamophobia and a lot more targeting of the Muslims in India, as much as they may like to say that the Muslims in India are not treated any differently.
Now, he also mentioned that the Prime Minister of India, Modi, and Jaishankar, the Foreign Minister of External Affairs, both are members of RSS, and RSS is inspired by Nazi SS. Is that a common knowledge in British media nowadays that this regime is somehow connected ideologically with the fascists of Europe?
The honest truth is that when it comes to India, a lot of this talk gets blinded by the fact that the Indian economy is very large. And that, again, is an undeniable fact. Nevertheless, we should not lose our moral compass when it comes to just trying to make money. And yes, even Britain is going through a tough economic time right now, especially after Brexit, but even for other reasons beyond that. And so I think that, having these blinders on to what is really happening on the ground in India, as far as even who is leading India, the RSS is a very dangerous ideology, which has been pointed out over and over again. And this is not just Muslims saying it. This is not just me or you saying this, but these are also Hindus themselves saying it. I have had Hindus on my show with Hindus for human rights organizations in the United States and elsewhere in the world who speak very openly against this Hindutva ideology. So this is not something that is just worrying the Muslims of the world. This is something that is worrying Hindus themselves, because their religion is being hijacked, and no one wants their religion hijacked, of course, especially for such extremist intentions.
Waqar, Rizwi, but one of the difference here is when Islam was hijacked by this ideology, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, almost all Muslim organizations, all Muslim scholars, and everyone in the West and the East were condemning and disassociating. Hindus for Human Rights is a very small, newly born group. Have you seen any major Hindu leaders, Ravi Shankar and this and that, have any of them come forward and condemn this fascism?
No, you're right, and that's a good point to make. I don't want to, of course, make it seem like, obviously, and I'm not sure you're saying that. I'm sure you're not saying this either. I should put it this way: that all Hindus support this. But I agree with you that yes, there is a very silent majority, and I believe that silent majority really needs to speak up before this really gets out of hand. It is already out of hand. But the silent majority really needs to speak up. So yes, of course, a lot of Muslim organizations on a regular basis, by the way, because as we know, every single time there's a terrorist attack anywhere in the world, as Muslims, we are expected to apologize for that, even though it is not, in fact, our responsibility to apologize for the crimes of every single Muslim, or a crime that may be committed by every single Muslim anywhere in the world. Nevertheless, yes, we should have more Hindus speaking up against the Hindutva ideology, but we also need to remember that the cyber army of the RSS, as well as just the entire death threat that looms over every time you speak about this, right? So as you pointed out, not only is there a bounty on Foreign Minister Bilal's head, but there's also death threats against him. So the bounty obviously is a death threat as well, but just beyond that too, he's been getting death threats as well. And according to him, of course, this is sort of proving his point. And I think that's very unfortunate. The silent majority needs to speak up because, again, it's their religion's name that is being sullied.
Just this week, there has been several terrorist attacks in Pakistan. Attacks on the police officer, their secret service, their anti-terrorism fighting groups and all that. Do you see Pakistan is facing an increased level of terrorism, while now Pakistan is accusing India of supporting these type of terrorism? What is your take on that?
I think that it's multifaceted, right? I can't comment on the India factor of this because I have never seen any evidence, credible evidence to prove it, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It's just that I have not seen it. So as a journalist, it would be irresponsible for me to say that for sure there is Indian involvement. There may very well be. But I think for me, the big factor is obviously the way that the US left Afghanistan, right? And just the situation in Afghanistan as it stands right now, vis-a-vis just the economy. So we can talk about many other things, but the economy is on the top of the list, because if you have a very large group of people in an entire country who are desperate, increasingly more desperate because of the economic situation and because of the fact that most of the world has cut them off from their own assets. So for them to survive then, and then for them to become, as we may say, quote unquote, radicalized, that is a huge danger on Pakistan's border as well. Again, I'm not saying that it's Afghans who are doing this, but I'm just saying that that is also a hugely important factor in this calculation, and regional instability will hurt not just Pakistan, but will hurt India as well, whether it realizes it or not, and other countries in the region around the Afghanistan border, such as Iran also.
Well, thank you so much, Waqar, Rizwi, for your time. Truly appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much for having me.
Back to you, Samana.
Thank you. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.